Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Leveraging Summer for Student Ministry Growth with Chad Higgins and Zach Workin. My name is Megan Miller from Lifeway's Ministry Success Team, and I would like to thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today. At Lifeway, our mission is to honor God and serve churches by designing trustworthy experiences that fuel ministry. We bring this mission to life through many ministry resources, including Bibles, Bible studies, books, camps, events, and many more, including Parent Partner and Youth Ministry Booster, both founded by our speakers, Zach and Chad. Parent Partner is a resource that gives you everything you need to serve the families in your ministry and equips parents to navigate tough conversations with their kids. Youth Ministry Booster is Lifeway's students' membership community for student pastors, where we train, coach, and care for student pastors in full-time and bivocational positions while connecting and growing together. In the webinar today, you will meet Riley Damari, one of Lifeway's Ministry Success Specialists, who will be hosting our conversation with Chad Higgins and Zach Workin. Chad and Zach both bring a combined 30-plus years of student ministry experience. They both lead student leader training and equipping events across the states. You can also catch them on the Student Ministry Podcast and the Youth Ministry Booster Podcast. Also, check out our new podcast for leaders in girls ministry, His Glory for Good. As a thank you for those of you who are attending the webinar today, you will receive a free digital copy of the book Gifted that we will send you in your follow-up email from us. This Bible study book is designed to help students discover and cultivate their spiritual gifts for use in your local church. Today, you're invited to join Chad and Zach's conversation live using the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. Please feel free to ask any question at any time. Our webinar today is being recorded and a replay will be available to you in the follow-up email you will receive from us in the next couple days. Without further ado, I'll hand it off to Riley to kick off our conversation.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you to all our student pastors, leaders, and volunteers, student ministers joining us today to chat about summer and how we can leverage this unique season to help grow your student ministry. So hope you're ready to take some notes and also engage in this conversation too. We want this to be live with you. So like Megan mentioned, use that Q&A feature at the bottom of Zoom. Drop your questions in there that are whatever we're talking about at the moment. Drop something in there and we will answer you live as we can. And use the chat feature too to engage in the conversation and answer questions. Go ahead right now and just drop your name, your city and state, where you're from in there so we can say hi and we'll kick off the conversation. Zach, Chad, it's good to be with you here today. Thanks for joining us.
All right. I'm excited to talk about fruit.
Absolutely. Well, that's the thing. You see, summer is great season of fruit,
Right.
not just in terms of discipleship ministry, but
Well, you'll produce
some good produce.
You guys, this is like a bad youth ministry like
extended
sermon
metaphor.
where you're like
extended
just
metaphor.
trying to weave some stuff
Well,
The
we'll
together.
get
seeds of this
there.
conversation hopefully will take root by the end of the
Yes,
year. So, yeah.
So what I want to do to kick us off, because summer is such a great season for really good fruit,
Yeah.
we're going to do a quick fruit draft.
We're
Okay.
drafting fruit.
We're going to draft fruit.
Okay.
So Chad,
Wow.
you're going to start with the first pick.
NFL draft, WWE draft, fruit draft, all
Right.
1 week.
You know,
That's a
it's
lot of
all-
draft.
right.
So
fruit.
are
Yeah,
we
yeah.
saying like what we're drafting here is like these are the fruits we get in our life? So if I draft a fruit, you guys don't get it?
Correct. Yeah, this is your fruit.
I like this.
Based on the merits of the fruit or our favoriteness of the fruit?
It depends your
Okay.
strategy. What
Yeah,
kind of team you
the
want to
strategy.
build.
You
you
get to
know?
Help
Explain
us
it.
out. Dan
we have
Gibson,
somebody from
Cody, help me out. Yeah.
London, England.
Help us
Right.
out. They don't eat fruit there.
Okay, so my first pick, and
First
I would,
pick.
by the way, definitely engage in the chat on this.
Top
What
pick. Top
should
pick.
be the number one fruit
Right.
taken? And I'm going to say this: number one fruit off the board, pineapple.
No. Oh, boo.
Dude,
Okay.
That's a-
pineapple is so good. It's so good in many different things.
But you can't eat it
Marinade.
without a tool. You're going to barehand pineapple?
What?
Golly.
Oh yeah,
It comes with armor. Forget you.
Right.
Forget you. No.
it's so good it
Mm.
brought its own protection.
It brought its own protection. It'll hurt a friend. No, the correct answer is banana. because it replenishes everything you need.
Hold on.
First
hold on,
round,
hold
first
on.
pick for Zach, banana.
Wait, hold on.
Potassium.
Your main argument against pineapple was that it had its own armor.
Right.
And then you immediately pick a fruit.
That has its own skin.
It has a worse armor.
No, it's not about the
Your
quality of the
armor bruises.
Yeah, it does. That's why you have to eat it. Yeah, it's fine. It's not a weapon.
All right,
We're talking about
banana's a
fruit.
good
Okay,
pick.
banana.
I got
No,
a good
first
pick.
round, first pick for Zach, banana.
All right, I'm feeling pretty good because my pick is still on the board.
Thank you, Ryan
I'm
Williams.
going with the apple.
Oh,
It's a versatile
okay.
fruit. You can pick it
Apple's
up and just
good.
dive right into it.
Free
Apple
caffeine.
pie.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so
You do have the best pie,
Yeah.
which
If you live in Virginia, there's whole festivals of apple. I don't know if you've done
I bet
this.
there's a
It's,
festival of all of
it's
these
the
fruits
American
somewhere.
summer. Yeah.
So.
so that's the one I'm going to build my team around.
Okay, you build your team with
Right.
apple. Okay, good.
I do want a specialist though, like
Oh,
someone that
okay.
can come in a supporting role.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
And so pineapple was my thought,
pineapple's
but
in-
that's
yeah.
off the board.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go with the strawberry to add a little bit of zest, a little bit of zing.
Seeds on the outside.
You know, seeds on the
Okay,
outside.
okay.
Really great summer fruit.
Okay.
So we're snake draft. So I've gone twice. So I'm done
Okay,
with
you got
apple
your
and
two.
strawberry.
Okay, top two for
Back to
Riley
you,
is
Zach.
apple and strawberry. I'm
That's a good
hearing the
pick.
criticism. Man, I'm tempted towards one, but I'm gonna go watermelon. I'm gonna
Golly,
go
dude.
watermelon.
I thought I was
the
gonna-
heavyweight of fruits. Yeah, super heavyweight.
Great
watermelon.
festival. Great festival
strong,
fruit.
Dude,
Strong.
I thought the watermelon was going to work its way around, and if I
You're
got
gonna sneak
pineapple
in
watermelon,
like a kicker, like a watermelon
Oh,
kicker. No, forget it.
That's like
Watermelon. My defense. Yes.
That's like I got to pick like Tom Brady and Emmitt Smith.
Oh, okay, you're not gonna get both. Not gonna get both. All right.
I'm going to go curveball
Oh,
in this since I
not a
have
fruit curveball, not a fruit.
since I have very last pick in all this. And here's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I do think that there are better fruits out there,
Oh, wow.
but sometimes,
Wow, you're already downplaying
like any
your
good
pick.
NFL team,
Okay.
you got to look at your
I-
needs.
You need a tight end. Yeah.
I'm going tomato. Tomato's a fruit.
Okay.
And here's the deal.
You literally picked the English kicker for your American football team. Amazing.
I
Yeah,
took
yeah,
the-
yeah.
I took
Solid.
I took the best offensive lineman on the board and went tomato.
Okay.
Here's the deal. I set myself up to have wonderful pizzas.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
The pizza plan was your fruit plan. Wow. Throw a little hate in the chat for anybody
I have-
designing fruits around pizza.
But here's the deal. I don't have to put the pineapple on it.
Oh.
But you boys now can never have pizza the rest of your life.
That's true. That's
See,
it. Well,
I don't think we
mm.
knew that the tomato had declared for the draft.
You
know,
I
it's
would
a fruit.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
know. I'm
think-
pretty sure it was going to give it one more year free agency to see. Yeah. Okay,
Right.
wow.
Yeah,
Now
we weren't
restricted.
ready for that one.
Restricted. Yeah.
Mhm.
Raspberries also a good pick. Yeah,
Raspberries,
also a
yeah.
good pick. I saw some
Blackberries.
mangoes in there. We talked earlier, Carlos. Mangoes is definitely a top pick if you're
Yeah.
eating globally.
Yeah.
American mangoes, nothing compared to
No,
mangoes
different
across the world. Yeah,
experience.
yeah, yeah. So silly, fruity fun. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks,
so
Riley.
fruit, one of the best parts of summer. As student ministers entering summer, it's a very unique season.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we still want to be engaged, but there's some different opportunities, different ways to
Life's
do that.
different
It's
in the
just
summer.
different.
Straight up, just different.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what are some of the challenges heading into summer that we need to start thinking about and preparing for, and how we reach and engage with our students?
So I think the first thing is to acknowledge it's a different season. You're planning it like it's different. It is different. I mean, some people for weather, they get 3 or 4 seasons. In student ministry, there is school season and there is summer season. I think so. Off the top, whatever you're doing or not doing, I think you have to at least acknowledge. You've got to at least acknowledge that summer is a different season. You're investing in it differently. You may be meeting differently. I know I even saw in some of the Facebook chat leading up to this event, there were some folks that were like, all summer, all the time. And other folks were like, all summer, no program. And so there's probably even tension for folks that are like, should we do what we always do in addition to the camps and events? Are the events the things that sub in instead of? I would say you probably could over program because there's maybe more time in student schedules some weeks, but over the course of the season. So that's what I would say is study the season. Know when it might be right to do and right to rest, because it is a end of May to the middle part of August is a different season of life for the people that you're serving, your students and their families.
Summer always felt so weird to me as a youth pastor.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not talking like the day to day, but just like in general, You talk about a time of year where it feels like, as a youth pastor, you get to wear all the different hats.
As many hats as you want to wear, actually.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
that bottom line of
Yeah.
your resume of like,
Oh,
and
kicks in, yeah.
all the other things that-
duties assigned.
Right.
Yeah. But some of them are even like self-assigned, right? You're like, I didn't know I was going to be a ref for VBS water slide
Right.
kickball, but here we are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I also drove the van across country for the
Right.
mission trip.
well, I mean, we're going to go to all the Six Flags, right? We got to see all Six Flags. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, you get all of that. But then there's also the very different parts of the administration of
Yes,
the job too.
yeah.
That I don't think it always feels like those creep up on us
Yeah.
in the midst of all the like relationships, school's out, water
Yeah.
balloon fight,
Yeah.
movie night,
Family vacation. Yeah.
family vacation. But then it's like, oh yeah, we also want to, you know what I mean? Like instate this new like small group curriculum in the fall.
Yeah.
And so you're spending some of your summertime like
Getting ready for the next
getting
season.
ready,
Yep, yep.
planning leaders. There's also for many student ministries a recruitment process that
Yeah.
happens over
Yep.
the summer months.
Yep.
The onboarding process for new leaders going into the fall. And I think it's really, really easy. And that's why we wanted to have this conversation
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
because a lot of times we wait until August 1
For the happenings of
to be like, how do I utilize and go into my fall? And
Yeah.
I think we've got to start talking about it now
Yeah.
to get ahead of it, because
Yeah.
I've seen this over and over again, and I don't think it's talked about enough. The transition of so many youth pastors from church to church
Yeah.
happens magically somewhere around October.
Right.
And I think a lot of that has to do because of the high stress that happens over the summer.
Run up into a
Yeah.
kind of crash of a fall. And so I some comments in the chat of, man, there's everybody's vying for as much attention from teenagers as they can get. And so I think one of the things is to be really thoughtful of the ask you're making. Like if you're asking for a week of camp and a week of mission trip, maybe we aren't asking as much in some other places. Like everybody wants more shares of families' times. And I think if we can be thoughtful in that way, conversational in that way. One of the things that was really beneficial in our Tulsa church was we as a church, like as a platform, we're going to have a busy June. That's kids camp and youth camp and VBS. And we're going to have a quiet July. And that was like our like covenant with our membership. It's like there was still Sunday worship. There was still the office was open, but the events and the things were in June. Plan your family vacay in July. And that was our like almost like communal agreement, because everybody's going to ask of your students, like every sport, every club, every summer band, whatever, are going to ask of it. And I think having the communal approach of like, here's who we are, here's what we're going to do, because we understand that it is different and that's okay. I mean, we were sharing earlier, Riley, that one of the big things to shift to is the gift of summer is that you don't have to always meet in the evenings because the school day is different. And so for some seasons, maybe in the summer, it's like, we're going to do Taco Tuesday Bible study instead of a late night Wednesday, because that was competing with, summer marching band or people being in and out or whatever. Having some of those options that weren't just more in addition to, but flexibility to try different things in the summer that you just could not do in the fall. So
we could take up all of our time talking about this.
Yeah.
And so I want us to hit it just briefly, because as we're talking about like the flow of summer, the structure of summer, those kind of things, as a youth minister, there are some things we can control.
we can
and some that we
cannot. They've been asked of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think as we start to talk about like, should there be normal Wednesday night or not?
Yeah.
Like some of those things are actually not in certain
Our
people's
choice.
control.
Sure.
And so I want us to hit very briefly. Riley, I'll kick it to you first, but I want to hear from both of you guys. When we start to have a good conversation with our senior pastor about maybe things that are new of trying for the summer or whatever, how would we go about engaging that? What would be some good practices?
Yeah.
Because man, if you've got a great idea, I've seen so many youth pastors crash and burn because it's like, we're not doing Wednesday night. And then their senior pastor's like, knock.
Announced on the Sunday before the Wednesday. Right.
So what would be some ways that you would think about engaging that conversation?
Yeah. Well, I think if the ask is, hey, we need to keep our Wednesday night programming going. We want that consistency. We want it on the church calendar. Maybe start to think like, how can that Wednesday look different in the
good.
summer.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's not such of a service worship kind
A
of flow.
program
Like
production.
how can we make
Yeah.
it smaller, more personal? Can we do service projects? I think
Yeah.
get creative in not having just the same Wednesday you had
Yeah.
throughout the school year. Do something a little bit different in the
Yeah.
summer.
Honor the time, but alter the ask. And
Yeah.
that's because that's one of the things that we did want to talk about is kids are in and out for stuff, but so are your adult volunteers.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things to really honor in the summer is that, if the service times must continue, if the show must go on the times that have been allotted, what are the flexibilities that we can offer when we gather that would give some breathing room for the families that we're going to be gone for a few weeks, or a chance to reset or refresh, or even to give us a chance to go recruit other folks into. Everything else in our life that seems to be healthy and flourishing has a season of on and a season of rest. Not necessarily stop and go, but there are like high and low. And I think being able to adjust for that, we're like, maybe this Wednesday is just man, we're grilling hot dogs and we're playing volleyball outside. And that's great. Like that's good for the community that is your student group, your youth ministry. And that can happen on the regular scheduled Wednesday at 6:30, or maybe that's the thing you do instead of. But I think being flexible enough to meet your students where they're at, either with fun or with depth, is a really inviting thing in the summertime.
So one of the things that I want to encourage in the chat right now, what are some like maybe unique things, and it may not be like completely out of the box, but what are some unique things that your student ministry does during
summer
the summer
specials?
Yeah.
What are your summer specials? Yeah,
because this is a great place to learn, right? Like, I don't know how many times I've seen people be like, we do this big, volleyball tournament or whatever, that you're like, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And so that could be a great way for us to learn together. I love what you talked about of these kind of different seasons.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so easy, even in the midst of a bigger plan, right? That we just do things because we've always done them, things, right?
We do them until we can do them no longer. Yeah.
And at first, those things have excitement.
Yeah.
And then over time, they just kind of plateau or diminish. And I think it's always so important to continue to ask the question of why are we doing this?
Yep.
Even the most important things.
Yeah.
And just because we're asking the question of why are we doing it, it's not because we're trying to cut it.
Yeah.
But it's often to really reevaluate what is the primary focus.
Yeah.
Because I think as we're going to begin to talk about growth specifically, and I want us to talk about both spiritual growth that we see in students, but then also numeric growth. That is a real thing that I think has gotten like a bad rap. It's like, we don't care about numbers. I get that. But we also have to think about how do we reach students? And I think a summer's a really great time to do that. And we're not going to do it if it's just like, these are our events on the schedule. But without asking, like, what is the purpose of this?
So to your question earlier, into this question, one, the senior leadership conversation, the earlier the better. I think that if you're going to try new stuff, you have to give other people runway enough to try to understand it. And so if you've got the bigger the idea, the more runway you need for them to kind of understand it. One of the things that was picked up in the chat here that I would want to share to your second question about what's the purpose. Somebody shared, I have to scroll up and see, about visiting neighborhood pools around the community. So like literally we're bringing the party to a residential neighborhood near you. Now that takes a lot of thoughtful communication that, hey guys, we are not going to be at the campus location. We're going to be at this neighborhood pool. But the idea that we're having a pool party where kids could literally walk to it because they were in that neighborhood really speaks highly of trying to outreach and connect with literally where students are at. I think that's a gift of summer, is like, hey, we're still doing a thing at this certain time, but we're bringing the party to you, the block party, the pool party. I think some of the questions that you're asking, Chad, really relate to like, what are the things that summer might give us a leg up on or an advantage in? School year is great because it's rhythm and it's routine. Summer is flexible enough that maybe we can either by location or activity try to connect with different groups of students. So like the volleyball tournament is not going to reach a certain bandwidth of your kids, but for another bandwidth, they would live to be known as the best volleyball squad in their area might be the thing. And so it just depends. I think trying some of those different things out, knowing that like this was designed either to reach a certain like demographic or people group or through a specific means or area.
So what are some ideas in this different flow where there's a little bit more flexibility, more kind of maybe spur of the moment meetings, coffees, lunches, that kind of thing? How do we engage our volunteers to step up in that? Where like it's easy to say, hey, come Wednesday at 7, give us 2 hours.
We're doing it different. Yeah.
Right. But it's harder to like, how do you get them to go and kind of lead? If you're leading a group of 100 kids, you can't meet with them all during the summer. So
you can't just sit them up, line them down.
Right.
Everybody gets 40 seconds with you. Yeah.
So like, how do we engage our volunteers in that way that might be different from our normal routine?
Riley, that's a great question because there's nothing more awkward than being an adult at the wrong pool party. And so, I think that goes back to some of that school year training of things of like, hopefully some of the folks there already have a pre-existing relationship from small group or mentorship time with those students. So it's not just like, hey, this is Bobby and these are the 11th grade guys, but he knows some of them from the group time they had. I think the work of the youth ministry leader, either in part or in team, is to always create some organized fun. Like it's a pool party, but there also was like a game of like water polo going on or whatever. Like it wasn't just like, we weren't just hanging out. There was like specific board games because it's awkward to know to hang out with students. But if you're in charge of this board game, or if you're like, hey, I'm Brett, I'm in charge of 9 Square, that gives you like a specific role or a place to stand. I think that's what small groups secretly do, is it gives an adult a certain jurisdiction of authority. I'm in charge of the 8th grade guys. Like you got to help create that either in the room or with what's going on, or else all the dudes are going to gather around the grill and all the other folks are going to gather here. Like there's like a natural thing they'll fall into unless you can supervise and direct them intentionally. Like you probably do it intuitively because you're a leader that's like, these are my students, this is awesome. But help Rick out by knowing where to stand. And if the grill is where he's supposed to stand, that's awesome. We need someone behind the grill, but let her know where they're supposed to be. Yeah.
I think one of the most important jobs as a youth minister is to be able to have the pulse of your ministry.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's why this conversation is so important. If you think about a lot of the stuff that we have talked about already, highly relational, there's fun elements to it, all of those kind of things. And I think that is because we understand that for students, there's a way to connect through fun.
Yeah.
And the same way that we talked about taking an organizational rest, I think the savvy youth minister is able to also continue to keep pulse on their volunteer leaders.
Yeah.
There is time and there's space, maybe not for all of them, but for some of them, that you get to go to Kathy and be like, hey, Kathy, you have been doing such an amazing job. This is not a timeout. This is an honor for you. Would you take the next month or two?
Take June off. Yeah.
Go to church with your family.
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
Go to kids camp with your kids.
Yeah. And have fun. We definitely expect you back in the fall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We have that written down.
Right. But that's a way that we can honor, celebrate our leaders in some really important way. It's another way too, to engage new leaders.
Yeah.
For many of us, we have students that were leadership students in our student ministry when they were in high school. They've gone off to college. They may be back for the summer.
Yeah.
That's a great way to re-engage them, to continue to pour into them.
The old fresh rotation. The
fresh rotation. Yeah. Man, the idea of, interns and those kind of things inside of our churches to be able to utilize during the summer.
The old relief pitchers.
It gives our consistent leaders some rest, brings in some life off the old bench.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about these fun elements of games and stuff, let's just be honest. I'm in my 40s now.
Right.
Like bringing in.
Let's not twist the knee on the old sand volleyball court.
Bring
down.
Right. Bringing in the sophomore, junior in college.
Yeah.
We trust.
Yeah.
It is what we want.
Bryson's very good at volleyball.
Exactly. And he'll dominate.
That's
and
true.
we need him
That's
on
true.
our team, the sponsor.
That's right.
team.
That's right.
So we've got a question from Jeremy Brummel.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question,
JB,
Jeremy.
yeah.
Go, Jeremy.
Woo-hoo!
How do we plug in new students without normal programming? Or is this a season where, hey, we're just kind of focusing on who's here? Like, what should that expectation be? And then maybe also talk about what those goals should be of how to measure a successful summer.
Yeah. I think some of the things you do differently help connect the new. One of the things that, again, we're youth ministry leaders. For us, it is our domain. Wednesday night programming is odd, right? Like if you're 15 and it's like, hey, come to my church, we're going to sing some songs, and the guy with the facial hair is going to talk at us for a little bit. That may not be like the first acclimation to what's going on, but a volleyball thing or a board game tournament, Super Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, like some of these things are what students are doing when they're hanging out in the summer anyway. But maybe that's hosted at the church as the venue, or it's with the community that is our youth group that happens to meet offsite. And so they're being kind of, grafted into what's going on. I think that's one of the things that helps shift it from being a programmatic ministry to a relational ministry, is that I'm bought into these people wherever they gather, and not just the Ignite service on Wednesdays at 7. And I think that's an important piece, especially as we move more and more into what I think is a relational age of ministry, is that they're going to be there because their buddies or the leader or you as the minister is there. And it happens to be this thing at 7 versus like, I'm coming to the thing at 7. And
so this is part of a bigger conversation that I think we want to have. But I think as we talk about without a programming element, I would say that there's always a programming element at some level.
There's always a plan.
There's
always a plan. Yeah, there's always a plan.
And so I think one of the biggest travesties is we often don't use momentum well.
Yep.
And we'll host events, and we work so hard in making that event great
to just execute the thing.
Yes. That we forget the opportunity that it plays into the bigger scheme.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of first said, man, what is the why here?
Yeah.
Man, one of the ideas that I saw somebody post on what they were doing this summer was these breakfast clubs.
I love that. Yeah.
That's a unique space, a unique time. I imagine students eating together.
I get to go to bed early. I love that. That's great. That's awesome.
But to be thinking through, okay, we know breakfast club can't last forever.
Right. School will come back. They'll have to go back.
And so what do I want to move these students
from to? Yeah, that's good.
And not just think about anything we do as a one thing. So you may do backyard. I think I saw that, like backyard and pool time and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be really easy for a kid to come to those.
Yeah.
Invited by their friend who doesn't want to go swim.
Swim and food done.
Yeah. I've done a lot worse for a pool and a hot dog.
Yeah.
And so they may come to something like that and they may have a great time.
Yeah.
And oftentimes there's not real thought into how do we move them from A to B.
Yeah.
And all we do and all I see done is, all right, well, here in a couple of weeks, we're going to meet on Wednesday night at the church.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Instead of going, okay, we may have to hold these hands.
Yeah.
And realize, and to be able to track even during the pool party.
Yeah.
Who was there?
Yeah.
Who was not there?
Right.
And then how do we go get students? I think when we think about growth, a lot of times we just hope that it happens.
Right. We do enough that eventually we're literally just scattering seed, hoping that it works out. Yeah.
Really, churches that are really growing are strategic about it.
Yeah.
And they're utilizing space and time to go after students and make it as easy as possible for them to know where to be.
Yeah.
How to get plugged in, all of those kind of things. Yeah. And so think through in those pool parties and those fun events. Summer camp's always the example I give.
Yeah, this is a good one. This is a good one.
Summer camp is, for most student ministries, one of their biggest events of the year. You put a lot of time, a lot of finances, a lot of all the things into summer camp to get new students there. And then it's like, yep, summer camp was great. We hope to see you later.
See you next year.
See you next year.
Oh no. Oh no, my friends. Oh no, you've missed the opportunity.
Yeah, you have all this momentum and build up coming out of camp. And then it's like, we're going to not do anything for
the
2
greatest
months.
Investment of time, resources, and people all year long. And you were like, see you next year. Right. Oh, no. Yeah. Because you often say,
but if you go into summer camp, and man, we may have 5 goals, right? But let's say one of your big goals is we want to get students that are not connected to our student ministry into our small groups, because we know that small groups where relationship happens,
Yeah.
and that's the next big touch point we want for our student ministry. Then you should be talking about small groups all during camp.
Modeling, talking,
Yep.
planning for, guys, this has been great. These groups actually will continue meeting in August, whatever. Yeah. So
Yeah. And so to be able to like talk through that, to be able to connect them, all of those kind of things, I think is so good.
that's good. That's good.
So coming out of camp, we know that's an environment for a lot of churches, whether it's like camp time or conferences, whatever it looks like for you, where often there's some new decisions coming out of that,
Yeah.
right? Like some kids invited their friends, they
Yep.
responded during a message.
It was highly
Right.
evangelistic in its
Exactly.
approach
And now you're
outreach.
kind of you're in this place where I was focused on all these logistics of
Yeah.
pulling off this event. And how can we be ready for those decisions being made? And what does that follow-up plan need to look like during the summer so that we don't have that 2-month gap until
Yeah.
we serve them again?
Well, so this is one of the things, man, this is a special season in ministry. Like, we're coming out of Easter stuff. We're thinking about summer stuff. Hopefully most of your big summer decisions of schedule, calendar, locations have been planned. I would take these next couple weeks and be thinking about the discipleship work that comes from the things that we've been putting the energy into. Chad, in the same way that you talked about, like, you go to camp to have a great time at camp, to maybe either leverage small groups or student leadership or whatever it might be, and you want to think about what comes after. May is the time that I always want to think through, refresh, and maybe even train leaders on what is our follow-up plan for new believers, because I want that established before the first night of camp. What do we do if? What do we do in hopeful anticipation of when? It is the biggest question right now in student ministry of what happens next. I think for so many folks that have been praying for this student to come to know the Lord, for this student to have a rejoinder and be a part of the ministry, or for this student to reconcile with their family, it's the thing you've been praying for. What can you also be planning for? And I think that's one of the things that we can come ready with the right kind of plan. And the thing that I would encourage folks is to have a few leaders that are dedicated to the effort. I think one of the things, especially in a summer season, is to have some mentors that are ready, either as part of your team or maybe that's their special task of mentoring new believers. Maybe some of those breakfast clubs are built around that. Maybe there's some high emphasis on, we have some Wednesday night gatherings and there's some games and this and that. But for the first 30 or the last 30, this special group of new believers is going to meet, or we're going to partner and pair folks up. And so I think there's just some things to have a plan for. What are the next steps that happen beyond just celebrating what happened at the event, the camp, or the thing?
That's good. I even saw in the chat, and you mentioned it, and this is why I want to bring it up now, even maybe some struggle of, how do we recruit these new volunteers
to come help?
Those kind of things. One of the things that we talk a lot about is the recruitment of volunteer leaders is not an easy process.
Right.
Even
a fast process.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a slow work.
The old saying is very, very true. Always be recruiting.
Always be recruiting.
You should always be bringing in new leaders all the time. And I will say this, if your goal and plan of getting volunteer leaders is just to put a blurb in your bulletin on a Sunday morning, or stand up on a Sunday morning stage and say, we need volunteers, or
please help,
make a post, you will never have enough leaders.
Right.
You just will not. And the leaders that you will have will be leaders that are high on mercy, because they hear your cry.
They're responding to you, not what you're asking them to do.
And so to get the right leaders in the room, there are specific asks that have to be made. You have to get to know the adults in your church that are serving, that are there. Some of those are parents, some of those are not. But to be able to actually make an ask. Some of the best leaders that I've had over the years said no to me the first time I asked them.
Because they had other stuff going on, because a lot of folks had asked them.
Well, your most high caliber leaders are high caliber because they have a lot going on. They're business owners, you know what I mean? Teachers, coaches, all these kind of stuff that are already really busy in general. And so it is a sacrifice to be plugged in and into these ministries. And so we've got to be people to ask them. We have to have our stuff together
Right.
to be organized to where they can fit in, that they know what to do. That's why I love what you talked about, having a specific place for them
Yeah.
and not just come stand in the room.
Well, don't come be a leader. Hey, Karen, will you come be a mentor for new believers coming out of summer camp?
It's good.
It's a 5-meeting thing. It basically is the month of August. What do you say? That's so much more of a specific ask than will you help in the youth?
Yeah.
Like if someone says, hey, come help in the youth, I'm scared of what all that might mean. In the same way that you're scared of as other duties assigned. It's the thing that like, tell me what you need me to do. And so whether that's like, man, if there's a team of deacon dads that maybe are not highly relational small group leaders, but they can run security while y'all are having like a picnic at the park, like recruit them for the 4 August Wednesdays when you guys are doing tour de parks and you're just grilling out, hanging out. Those guys would love to serve in that way. In the same way that you may have some senior saints who are awesome at discipleship that can't do the late Wednesday night thing. But if there are some deep dive Tuesdays for new believers that are going through the follower book together, like, man, have them do that for the stretch of the summer that it is. There's a start, there's an end, there's an ask. Now we're cooking with what we really need them to do and not just how much help can we drum up. Yeah.
That's so good.
I think it's important to stop sometimes and look at your pool of volunteers and ask yourself, like, who is showing up that I haven't really leaned into and given opportunity to lead?
Maybe asked
and grow
enough
in new
of
ways.
Yeah.
You know,
You might be surprised.
you got these volunteers that are key volunteers that are like awesome at what they do, but maybe you're not getting them as much as you want. Like, what kind of investment can we put into a leader who's willing to show up to kind of get them to that place where we can really trust them to go like handle something?
Get the yearbook out, man. Get the pictures of all the ones that are helping in your ministry in front of you and see where the missing pieces are from the church directory. Yeah.
So back to these new believers,
Okay.
you know, Lifeway, we're all about resources.
We want to help.
So we want to have resources that
the
can go
stuff you
with your
need.
plan.
Yep.
So we do have one of those is Follower from Lifeway students.
Yeah.
That is a great resource for new believers. Can you talk a little bit about how they could use this?
So this is one of those, I'm really proud of our team for resources that should just sit on your shelf, ready to go. I would have a few copies in my office right now, ready to go as the camp follow-up thing for the new believer. I think there's like 8 or 9 chapters that walk them through some of just the core tenets of what it means to be saved, a part of a community, what it means to give, what it means to serve, what it means to live faithfully. What the heck is communion?
Mm-hmm.
Like some of these conversation topics that maybe even for our adult leaders that are like, I think I know what that is, but I didn't know how to bring it up. A book like Follower helps them walk through in 5 or 8, just the coffee talks or breakfast clubs of what some of these like core things are that will help that 14 or 17-year-old get a bigger picture or a more recognized sense of what it means to be a disciple. Again, the discipleship question for Youth Ministry Day is what is next? What happens next? And so helping to have the resources for a leader or for you in a student meeting, just to have those next steps, those next conversations to have. Yeah.
So for our students that are maybe coming back from camp, that they are engaged students that show up,
You fired up,
but they're fired up. They got this momentum.
Camp does that on
made
people,
a recommitment.
man. Yeah.
How do we engage? Can we engage them with leading follower studies? What's the study that we have for them? What are ways to capitalize on that momentum?
Well, I think this is the one that everybody that's here, so congrats, gets, is one of our latest. It's called Gifted. This is in response to youth ministers asking for more stuff on spiritual gifts or spiritual giftedness. There's a lot of things that have been put out, like the spiritual gift survey or an assessment. This is a little bit of that with a little bit of walkthrough things that you could do at those, like, you call it student leadership, call it a discipleship club. It's not a forever study. It's something you would do maybe with a group of students that were interested in it. But man, what a great runway setup, early first few meetings for a student lead team that's trying to figure out their role, or maybe even with some of the adults in the room. I saw somebody ask, like, how do you know where to put people? You were thinking about, how do I need to ask more of people? Man, if you find out that Mary has this gift of exhortation, like, man, encouragement is a necessary part of a healthy community. Let's figure out ways to engage that way more. Let's be surprised who's actually more administrative than we thought they were.
Right.
And so I think just, again, creating opportunities for these conversations that help shape the ministry, but also build up those that are like deeply in it, connected and wanting more.
Right.
Again, you're going to meet for Bible study regularly, weekly, consistently, but some of these high emphasis, high interest things are really fun and unique and maybe grabbing and like kind of attention getting in the summertime.
Right. We did have the question on like, what are those specific roles for leaders? But based off kind of what you're saying, is it better to staff positions based on who you have and their strengths rather than writing ideas of here's what we want and finding
So-
people to fit those?
So
Now
now we're asking the good stuff.
Oh, let's go. Let's go.
To me, this goes back to the question of pulse of ministry.
Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with even your own buy-in
Yeah.
as the youth minister. How well are you trusted? Who are the actual leaders
Yeah.
that you have in the room? If it's year one for you, right, and you're still trying to
Tread
build-
cautiously.
build culture, those kind of things, you probably have less of a runway than the guy that's been there for
7-8 years.
yeah, 7-8 years, that's built a good team, that's trusted,
Yeah.
all of these kind of things. And you also have leaders in the stalls that are capable
Yeah.
and all of these kind of
They've
things.
proven it. Yeah.
Right.
They've exemplified, they've innovated. Yeah.
You know, I think it's so important to realize, like, as ministers, we are equipping the saints for the work of the ministry.
Yep.
Like, your leaders that you're bought into, it's not about you,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
If you're just building a ministry around you,
Yeah.
then that church that you're trying to serve has to completely start over.
When you
you
leave.
leave,
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of going, no, my work here is to develop a team of adults
Yeah.
to serve the students of this community.
Yeah.
God's called me to lead in this space. And so to do that well, we shape, we grow leaders, we grow students, we build a plan. You want to see successful student ministries be gone for a week.
Yeah.
How does it run?
Yeah. And if you feel like you could never be gone a week, you've already given the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
So if I'm not there, we have to cancel. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, right.
Uh-oh.
and I think some are some great places to help develop,
Yeah.
let
Yeah.
some of our leaders step into those
Right.
places.
You can try stuff out.
Oh,
Like, you can just throw
100%.
stuff at the wall. Like, do this for a couple weeks and we'll see how it works
Yeah,
out.
I mean,
and-
if he really wants to try that video game tournament because he thinks that there's gamer guys and girls that are like adjacent to your ministry, sure, man.
yeah.
It's a Wednesday. Let's give it a go.
Yeah.
Let's plan ahead. Let's have the timeline, but let's try it.
Yeah.
Or, you know, if this one dad is just really, really concerned about small automotive engine repair stuff and he wants to run a mower clinic, sure, man, let's
Right.
talk about it. Yeah.
It's like when your volunteers come to you and they're like, I've got this great idea for an event. Like, what do you think? Like, the
July's a great
response should
time.
be like,
July's a great
why
time.
don't you go lead it? Like,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
support you and help you.
Let's
but,
figure
like,
it out together.
let's go do it.
Yeah.
So,
There's a question that's asked about the splitting of middle school and high school for separate events.
Mm.
And I actually think that this question ties into exactly what we're talking
Yeah.
about. Because I think as we're talking about recruiting leaders, putting them in certain spots, I think the growth stunter is when we try to have all of our things do all of the things all of the time.
Mm.
Yeah.
And instead of realizing, you know what, the pool party for middle school students can just be a fun event,
Yeah.
because that's not the only thing we're going to do.
Right.
And to realize, like, yeah, we still, I mean, it sounds like Justin here asking this question is still wanting there to be connection between
Both
his middle school
Yep.
and high school. And
Yep.
that's great. But having an event that is just one unapologetically
Yeah.
is fine.
Yeah.
And it's great. And now we don't want
'Cause
to
you know the way to ruin a high school swim party? Invite middle schoolers to it.
Right.
Yeah, like it's actually a great example of like
Yeah.
these audiences we better served
Yeah.
differently. Yeah.
But to realize, like, you're not just doing one event,
Right.
and it's not just one summer.
It doesn't have to be everything for all people every
Right.
time. Yeah.
And I think that sometimes, you know, we try to do these things where it's like we have the pulse of our student ministry,
Yeah.
and it's like, man, these students just aren't as connected as we hope they would
Yeah.
be.
So we need to
And so then we'll host an event like a pool party, because it's like, okay, we know that we need them to be friends.
Yeah.
If we're going to get them to talk in small group,
yeah.
they actually have to like each other.
They actually have to be out of a small group to
Right.
get back into one.
and
Yeah,
to
yeah.
enjoy to be together. The problem is most of us, we want to still do all of it. So then it's the pool party. and the service. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah.
and sometimes there's space for that. Don't hear me incorrectly.
Hey,
Sometimes you look at the pulse and go,
you let Julian bring his acoustic guitar to the pool party.
but
Let him do it.
but that's what I'm saying is if your student ministry is in a place
Yeah,
where you can articulate, no, here's why we would do it.
yeah,
Our students are already connected,
yeah.
but I want them to be able to experience what worship looks like outside
Side
of our
the
four
building.
walls.
Yeah.
Then that makes perfect sense of why you would have
That's
it
a
there.
better story.
Yeah.
Yep.
But sometimes we have to realize, man, our group feels awkward around each other. Let's just have fun.
Yeah. Let's work on that.
And to realize that what we're doing is not just the summer of 2024,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
but we're trying to build a student ministry that has a lasting legacy in
Into
these
the
students'
next years.
lives.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
So as we kind of land the plane here, I want to circle back to one thing
Yeah.
that I know you guys are really passionate about. As summer is a season of rest,
Yeah.
season of youth pastors having time with their families. Could you speak to that after we've talked about all the work and all the
Yeah.
ideas and all the tasks? Could you just speak to that season as a family season?
Man, summer is going to tax you 100%. It's my prayer that right now, end of April, early May, you're starting to do some of the summer work and the post-summer work before it even hits. Like have the leader training on the docket for mid-August for the kick back to school stuff. But in all the things that you're planning for your students this summer, for your leaders and your back to fall this fall, I hope there's a week or some days that are on the calendar that include your family, whether that's a few days of staycation or time at the lake, or maybe you go somewhere. That week should be as planned as the mission trip or the camp week, because it matters just as much. In the same way that camp matters for students, because it's a highly relational, connective time, maybe to make up for some of the relational drift that had happened over the last few months. So is a well thought out vacation for you and your family. You're good at planning stuff. You do it for your students every year. Would you make sure that at least 3 to 5 days this summer, you have some intentional fun for you and your family?
Yeah. I think one of the unique things that summer has to offer to for dads and moms who are in ministry is the opportunity to allow your kids to be a part.
Yeah.
Wow.
Draw them into what
yeah.
you're a part of. Yeah.
In our work that we've done on the parent ministry side, modeling is so unbelievably important.
Yeah.
And I mean, our PK kids get a bad rap a lot of times.
Yeah.
And the reality is, man, there is an expectation, often not put on by mom and dad, but the rest of the church,
community, yeah.
right? But I think where I've seen it done so well is in those summer months. The fun pool party our kids can come to and be a part of.
Yeah.
And I think it's not only important for our own kids in that sense, but I think it's really important for our teenage students who may not have a great home life to see a really good dad and a really good mom that not only steps into that in their own life, but they get to see it modeled in the way that they are a dad or a mom. And I think us not only leading by programming well and strategy, but by living a life that is called to gospel things and the priority of our own kids in the midst of it. The students that we leave don't need a stressed out youth pastor.
Yeah.
They need men and women who are faithfully walking with the Lord and understand priorities, because in this life, whatever they go into, right, in their own profession, they're going to have stress. They're going to have anxiety. They're going to have busy seasons like you and I in the midst of summer. And if we can't, as spiritual leaders, model what it would look like in the midst of summer for a youth pastor to be devoted to the word, be devoted to our time with the Lord, to honor our spouse, to care for our kids, how would we ever expect these teenagers to grow into adults that do that? We get so frustrated with a society that chooses all of these things over church. And what do we model? Is it just that we're there because of it's our job? or do we love these people and care about community?
Yeah.
And I think we've got to be people that do
Yeah.
that in the private and not just the public.
Right. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. It really seems that more often being a better father or mother and spouse is going to serve you to be a better pastor than the other way around, right? Being a
Oh,
better
yeah.
pastor doesn't always necessarily mean you're a better, spouse and mother and father. So would you just offer just a blessing and just pray for us as we wrap up and pray over our student pastors and their families?
Hey, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of these conversations. May you continue to be a blessing to those in this chat, to the other ministers in the work around us. May your summer be so fantastic. May you be strategic about it, but may you press into the Lord. Let me pray for you and over you as we wrap up this time. Heavenly Father, we love you. We thank you for this time. We thank you for this conversation. God, as you continue to grow and mold us, God, I pray that these conversations are healthy for us as the capital C Church. Thank you for caring about the students. Thank you for bending our hearts and our mind to be strategic. Not that we would sit down and show what we've done, God, but that we would leave the 99 to go after the one.
Yes, Lord.
There are students right now that are represented by the people in this Zoom room that they don't even know their names yet. And God, I pray that this summer they would come to know you because of the work that they're going to do over the next couple of months. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. And so, God, we bow our knee today and say, here we are, Lord, use us. May we go after the leaders to chase after these students. May we do the hard work so that you are honored and glorified. We love you. In your holy, holy name, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Zach, Chad, thanks for joining us,
Yeah,
guys,
man,
and having
thank
this
you guys.
conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks to all of you for jumping on, for asking questions, engaging. That was really wonderful. So Megan's going to wrap up with a few housekeeping details on how you can stay connected with Lifeway students and take a look at some of these resources. One thing I do want to highlight that she's going to mention is there's going to be a survey that will pop up in your browser as soon as the Zoom room ends. We would love for you to fill out that survey, give us your thoughts on the webinar, and maybe some other topics that we could talk about next time. So with that, Megan, I'll let you wrap it up.
Thank you so much, Riley, Zach, and Chad. At the close of today's webinar, you'll see a short survey. It would mean so much to our team if you could take the time to send us your feedback on today's topic and any future webinars you would like to see from Lifeway. If you want to learn more about the resources mentioned in today's webinar, visit lifeway.com/students or scan the QR code on your screen. Keep your eye out for an email from our team containing the link to receive your free digital copy of the book Gifted. With that said, we'd like to thank you all so much for attending today's webinar. Have a great day.